something that really stuck with me is that it was not just a painting. I could see the movement of the couple dancing and like the things that were around.
I think from the very beginning, there's something that moves in my heart. I walk around the event, I experience it, I breathe it all in. And there's just something about being there that you just take in and you feel the music, you smell the flowers, you see the people and the vibrancy of their colors. And I take all of that and just kind of bottle it up. And then I just explode it onto the canvas. How I take it all in is very an emotional experience.
Hi, my name is Andrea, and besides of being recently married, I own the leading company in bouquet preservation in the world. It is when connecting with my clients that I felt the need to serve them and help them navigate this new and exciting journey. On this podcast, we bring you everything you need to know to plan the wedding of your dreams. We'll be featuring conversations with top wedding vendors and valuable tips and advice from real couples. Whether you're engaged or simply love, this podcast is for you. So sit back, relax, and let's get started on this journey to your perfect wedding day. Welcome to the club, to Bridal Club.
Today, I'm so excited to have Jennie Tucker with me. She's going to be talking about how to create a masterpiece that you can display forever in your home from your wedding day. Jennie, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Super excited to talk to you and learn more about your history. So tell us more how you started painting and your full story.
I grew up in Texas. I'm from Austin. Most of my weddings are still in Austin and Houston and Dallas because Texas is just in my blood and it always will be. I went to Baylor University. I studied graphic design and I realized very quickly I did not want to be on computers forever. So I started taking painting classes to get out of the computer lab and I fell in love with just the raw, tangible ability to move paint around on a canvas. And I had always loved art, but I was no prodigy. I had a painting teacher in college who told me essentially that I wasn't a good painter. And I graduated thinking there's just no way I'm going to be an artist. So the next best thing was helping the world's children. So I did something called Teach for America. And that sent me to Charleston, South Carolina, where I worked in school. And it was a very difficult 2 years of my life, but it was very rewarding. I ended up really enjoying the kids and I learned a lot and I grew a lot. But at the end of that, I knew I needed to change. And I moved to Denver. Well, I actually moved to Boulder and I was in the mountains. I had one friend there and I just started working a bunch of odd jobs. I was doing something called Young Life, working with kids again. I was working in a foster home and then I was a barista and I was a nanny. And so that was a pretty wild year of my life. And within that year, I just didn't know what my career path was. And I started painting again, kind of to escape the anxiety that I was having of what am I going to do with my future? And in the midst of that, I had a lot of friends and family asking to buy my paintings. I was doing these beautiful abstract pieces. And I started selling them and I was like, well, you could pay $20. I don't think I'm a very good artist. So they'd buy them. And then a friend was like, well, you did graphic design. So why don't you make a website and business cards? And I did that. And I started selling more and more. And I started getting a little bit more confident selling them for $100. And then a friend of mine in Young Life was getting married. And she told me, why don't you come to my wedding and paint at a botanic gardens? So I showed up with an easel and a canvas. I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never painted in front of people before, but it's just something. This was 2014. So 11 years ago. And I showed up at this beautiful botanic gardens that I actually live really close to now. And I just started painting the ceremony scene. And I realized very quickly I didn't have enough time and, all the things that I didn't know. But it was very obvious with 20 people standing around me, just jaw dropped. It just felt like, wow, I meant to do this. There was some joy in my heart that I hadn't felt in a while and a peace that was just only God given. And I had about 5 people from that one wedding who were like, can I fly you to Texas to come to my wedding? And I was like, sure, just pay for travel and I'll come do it. And so I started out probably charging maybe $500 for each wedding. So it was after that one wedding, it really was it took a year and it was off and running. And that was the only thing I was doing. And shortly thereafter, I moved to Denver and the rest is really history.
Yeah, what a beautiful story. I can relate to what you said a lot. You're starting doing just random pieces of art, and then of course now doing something that is so beyond meaningful to people. So there's a couple of things that I wanted to touch on. So you mentioned 2014, which is wild because of course we're seeing a lot more live painters doing it right now, but I feel like you're kind of like one of the first. And then also someone with authority tells you that you're not good at something or that you should turn away. It really does stay with you. I think it was Kate Winslet. She said like, yeah, I had an instructor that told me that I was never going to make it, that I was too fat for this and that. And of course she won an Oscar. So I feel like it's
wow.
Her story here too.
Yes, I actually went back to Baylor and got to speak to the students. And I didn't really say that too abruptly because I didn't want to offend the painting teacher, but he was like in his 80s and we had very different styles. And I saw him as like the master of his craft. So whatever he says is probably true. But now looking back, it's just, I'm a very impressionistic loose painter and he's an oil painter who's very perfectionist and we just had opposite styles. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to judge and grade somebody in art because every art is so different, you know?
It's so different and beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You know, what you think is beautiful, I may think is horrible or vice versa. And it's the coolest thing about art, you know, which I mean, if everybody liked the exact same thing, it would be so boring.
Exactly.
So I can't remember. I saw a video of you painting on Instagram, but I can't remember who posted it. And that is how I landed on your Instagram. And then I was like so mesmerized by everything that you were doing. Something that really stuck with me is that it was not just a painting. Like you were painting live, but I could see the movement of like the couple dancing and like the things that were around. So it didn't just look like a photo. And of course, like, I mean, even the one that you have up there, you know, like it's
a really loose one.
What a beautiful thing to capture, because truly you cannot necessarily capture that
process. It feels like, you know, an old master that has an apprentice next to them and they're learning from them. So it's kind of fun. But yeah, I wouldn't say anyone is in the most humble way. No one's at my level because they haven't been doing it as long as they have. So of course my pricing is at the highest. But we do a self-assessment and I have created an assessment for them to take and I take. And essentially we figure out which level they're at based on not just style, but professionalism, level of communication, preparedness. How do they interact with the guests? What's the feedback from the planners? So I have this whole system that I take them through and that kind of gives them a range, and it's entry level, mid-level, high level, and premium. Wow. So there's always something to work towards. But yeah, the pay scale and the self-assessment has been really helpful for me to know where they're at.
That is crazy. I definitely don't have anything like this. However, my girls train with me for 2 to 3 months just before they start taking their own thing, you know, and ultimately my goal is for them to obviously become better than I have been. And they have, which is so surreal, obviously, as a business owner, when you know, they call it like the student is like surpassing the teacher.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's awesome. I didn't know that you had like tiers, which brings me to my next question. Everybody thinks that painting live is expensive, or live painting is expensive, and I'm sure it is, and it can be. However, you have different levels. I'm sure it can be a little bit more affordable for people. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. I would say when it was just me, I kind of pigeonholed myself into the luxury high level weddings. And that was something that was so fun for me to be able to open the doors to other clientele now, because I have more availability with my other artists. Our starting rates usually start around 2,000. That's the minimum. And we try our best to accommodate people with payment plans. I just don't want to not be able to offer it to so many different levels of weddings. And so it's been really special to be able to offer some of our amazing artists at lower prices.
That's awesome. Okay, so let's talk about the experience, because it's not like you just thought painting. Like you are truly creating an experience, not only for the couple to actually see it live, but for the guests. Can you tell us more insight on that as well?
Yeah, something neat that's been kind of an unexpected treat is that weddings, there's, you know, we have extroverts and introverts, and there's a lot of people that you just start to notice are the wallflowers, and they're sitting at the tables while everybody else is dancing, or the grandparents that can't really physically dance. They'll just start to gravitate towards the painting. And it's just fun to see these personalities that are behind you that they just don't know who to talk to, or it might feel uncomfortable in the wedding scenario. And they'll come over and just talk to me, or they'll just watch. And it's been really fun to be a source of entertainment and just a source of safety for those people. So they'll come over and just want to engage with the painting, because there's something so safe about being around an artist that's just, oh, wow, I get to experience this, and it's outside of myself. I don't have to talk to all these people, but you also have the people who come over and just gab with you the whole wedding, or they'll say, "Can I paint something?" Or there's a lot of sayings that we hear every single time that we just laugh about. And, we have inside jokes now, like, "Oh, who'd you have ask that," or say that they've never done a stick figure? Like, that's a common thing. People say, like, "Oh, I can't even do a stick figure."
Oh.
And like, I hear that at every single wedding. Or, "I would never be able to do this." I'm like, "Oh, yes, you can." But there's almost like a script at every wedding now, because people just have similar things that they say to the artist.
I love that.
But
I never would have guessed that, like, the introvert, extrovert, like, I love that you're catering to everybody. And as a couple, that's something that, like, one less thing to worry about, right? Like, what am I going to do? Like, these people that are not going to talk to anybody, that just like experiential, like, activation or whatever you want to call it. It's so fun. I love it.
Yeah. And we do the guest portraits too. And so that has been really fun. And they actually get to take away their own piece of art. So that's just another step into gifting your guests something unexpected that they didn't even realize they would get.
For those that may not know what that is, can you explain a little bit?
One of our biggest offerings lately has been the live guest portraits. We'll have 1 to 5 artists at a wedding, and they're sitting at a table, and the guests come over and they get a picture quickly snapped of them. And within 5 to 8 minutes, our artists do an ink and watercolor sketch of them. And then they can come back and pick that up. And it's kind of like a luxury takeaway for them to remember your wedding. And we're actually starting to incorporate a digital file. So we may even start mailing the guest portrait to the bride and groom after the wedding with a note on the back from the guest. So that's kind of a fun new guest book for them to have. And it's a special keepsake of like an artistic rendering of all of their guests. And it's a pretty cool offering. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, I love it. That is so fun. And then also you do weddings, galas. What other events do you actually do?
We do a lot of corporate events, actually. So like big finance companies will come to the convention center here, and there'll be 1,000 people. And so we'll get as many artists as we can, and they just want something, an art activation is what they call it. And they want something for their guests to be able to engage with and something for them to take home. So corporate events, fundraisers, we do private birthday parties at homes in Aspen or Vail, and anniversary parties or elopements. I mean, you name it, we've probably done every kind of event. But our main thing is usually weddings, because that's just the most popular.
That's awesome. Well, how can people find you, connect with you, and hire you for their wedding?
So you can find us on the website, Jennie, Jennie, Lou, Lou, art.com, JennieLouArt.com, or Jennie Lou Art on Instagram. But make sure you put the IE, because people often spell it JENNY.
Well, thank you again so much. Make sure that you go to her Instagram to check out her work, as that is where I fell in love with your work. So thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm honored.
Learn about all things wedding straight from the experts. Be sure to like and subscribe to Bridal Club.